Hey, 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 welcome back to Trek Chats, a podcast brought to you by Trek on the Tube. I am your usual host, Sean, and joining me today are two very special guests. One is new, and one is returning. One is, he's always here. He's always hanging around. We love him. Starfleet Boy, how you doing? And thank you so much for joining us.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I haven't been on in a long time. Well, no, maybe that's not true, actually. I take it back.
Maybe we haven't recorded together in a while, but in the way the episodes are released, you're always in there every second episode, maybe something like that.
Something like that.
I try to change things up so it's not always you. People might get bored. No,
yeah, I think
how
they
could
would get bored if it was always me.
And our second guest, the guest of honor today, Dom Paris of Trek Central. How you doing?
Yes, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. And I hope people don't get bored of me from just one episode. But,
No, that's impossible.
It's good to be here and talk about stuff.
Yeah. Especially considering Dom comes here accompanied with a little background ambient sound. So how could we get bored of that?
Yes, it was totally planned.
Completely planned. I hope we don't get any copyright infringements. What's going on?
No, it's all the talking in between, and then you just have to chop out
fine.
one little bit, and it should be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
Today we're talking about the multiverse in Star Trek. I want to talk about it because just a heads up, I have not seen the most recent Spider-Man film. But you know,
okay, so no spoilers. Got it.
No spoilers on that. I think I
Okay.
am pretty much up to date with at least one thing that happened because everyone had kind of predicted that before the film ever came out.
Yes.
But anyway,
I won't reference it with when I do my examples.
That's fine. But we are in an age, I think, where mainstream media, and I say mainstream media because I feel like we've already been having multiverse stories for a while now across all mediums. But I think mainstream media is now more willing and more accepting and brave enough to dare do multiverse stories with the MCU and plenty of other things. So it's now time to talk about Star Trek doing that. Dom, you want to kick us off? You said you had a lot of things to talk about.
I do have a lot of things to talk about. But obviously we've kind of had a multiverse thing in Star Trek since TOS,
the original series, yeah.
And I guess also that is it Alternate Factor with Lazarus and Anti-Lazarus?
That's right, the antimatter universe.
The antimatter universe, yep. And then you have the animated series with the Magics of Megas 2.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm a little less clear. I haven't seen that one in a long time, but yeah.
The Magic universe and Spock being taught by Lucifer how to use magic.
That's right.
Animated series is weird. Star Trek has always been interesting with the ideas of multiverse and alternate universes and timelines because it very much mixes them all. You don't know whether it's just a separate timeline or a separate universe, and whether it's a quantum universe or whatever. But it's interesting that with the recent Discovery episodes, you've had a much bigger, I guess, public understanding of Trek is doing multiverse now, just because you have one character outright saying in a single sentence, oh yeah, there are multiple universes, not just the mirror universe, which we are so susceptible to in Trek.
Well, I think there's something that like the mirror universe, we're drawn to it somehow. It's like,
yes, which is very interesting considering that it was just not in the Next Generation at all. But it's become so pervasive from
Dom. Is there an argument to be made that perhaps the oh no, you can't make that argument. No, right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's not in the it's
theory collapses before it begins.
It did because I thought about the episode and I was like, nope. Oh yeah, there's very important things that happen that discount that.
But it's interesting going then into Discovery, and especially Discovery Season 1, with Lorca very much underpinning that, oh yeah, the mycelial network can be used to visit other universes, and this is a bold new frontier that Stamets has discovered. But then it's just kind of like pushed aside as just like, oh, mirror universe, and then never touched on again. But it very much set the stones for this multiverse thing, which would then be later brought up in season 4.
Well, now that I think of it, you're absolutely right. Lorca in season 1 there's that montage thing. Well, it's not a montage, but I think he shows Burnham flashes of like different times and different places.
Oh, not necessarily times. I don't know, but places.
Yeah, I think
that
was just different places in
but
the
later,
context
there's
of Kings.
Later, after the calculations they made when they did all those like jumps around the Klingon sarcophagus ship, Lorca was able to. That's when he threw up that map, and I think Stamets is the only person he showed that to. I don't think he showed it to.
I think
he showed it to Burnham as well.
He showed it to Stamets individually, then he showed it to Burnham and Saru.
Oh, okay,
and
gotcha.
was like, conveniently, the jumps managed to fix the equation. What surprise! And there was like pockets of dark matter and
gotcha,
craziness.
But yeah, that's after that is when they could do the calculations to jump to his multiverse, to his universe, which happens to be the mirror universe. But it means that the capability to jump to any universe is there on the Discovery.
And I'd definitely love to bring up the book Dead Endless. Have you read that book?
No, I have not.
No, neither.
Do you mind if I talk about it?
I don't mind. No, go ahead.
Thank you. So it's a book by David Galanta, who I think unfortunately passed away last year.
Oh.
But he was a really, really great Trek author, and his book was all about. Basically, Discovery opened this like Pandora's box of the mycelial network and then didn't do much with it, which I think is my biggest criticism of Discovery. But this book very much goes into that and goes into the ramifications of, if we do have a technology that can explore and go to other universes, different universes, then what does that mean for the Federation? What does that mean for Star Trek as a whole? And the book's very interesting because it starts with Captain Burnham of the Discovery. But the Klingon War didn't happen. The battle at the Binary Stars didn't happen. It's actually referred to as the standoff at the Binary Stars. And they were able to not go to war. And with this, and then going into, we can look at not just war uses for the mycelial technology, but look into communications technology, sending communications with mycelial network, not just propulsion. And they managed to get in contact with people from other universes and actually start to I think if I remember correctly, this book came out in 2019, so it's already 3 years ago. So I don't remember it that vividly, but it introduces a mycelial federation of multiple of different quantum timelines.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's also a good book because it further expands on Hugh Culber's journey through the mycelial network when he's dead in season 1, then comes back in season 2, and he's helped by Ephraim, who is the tardigrade Ripper from season 1, who's actually called Ephraim, who then appears in Ephraim and Dot.
Ephraim and Dot, that's cool.
Thing, because I think it says that they're the same, but who knows? And it just expands on this understanding of what it means to be in a multiverse, and that there's another final frontier out there, another undiscovered country, which I would love to see Trek explore now that the Pandora's box is opened.
That's really cool. They still could do that actually in Discovery. That door hasn't closed at all because they're developing. I mean, I know we're kind of at a cliffhanger moment, but assuming everything goes well, they have this new spore drive technology that they could maybe use, and they could potentially use that to jump across universes and start creating an alliance or a federation that spans across the multiverse.
Yeah, and I can definitely see them doing, because as you said at the beginning, a lot of studios are looking into their multiverse stories, and I definitely think that could be something that Star Trek could do with big crossover events.
The crossovers are coming too, Alex Kurtzman said. that they would. So I'm I'm
Yes, but
excited.
he also said Section 31 would be here. But
Yeah, he did do that. He did say that. It's true. Uh,
He had a full set of bullet points when he got the job, and there was like a Starfleet Academy show in there, and
yeah,
A Khan related project. They didn't
Hey,
happen.
all of these things, all of these things could
They
be
take time.
also not just that, but like they can kind of you can kind of go wild with them by just placing them in the multiverse. I think audiences are ready for that too. You don't have to be
yes.
restricted by the quote unquote canonical events of the prime timeline by placing a show in another timeline. And
So
that's kind of what they did with the Kelvin films, and it worked.
yes,
It worked really, really well because you didn't have to be like bound to the aesthetics or the technological point of view that was expressed before for the original series. So yeah, we could do so many cool things. In fact, one of my biggest wishes was that Discovery had started out as a show set in another timeline slash universe, because I loved it. Like I loved the idea of what they were doing and where they were pushing it, but it didn't personally for me, it didn't fit well with my understanding of what this era of Star Trek should be,
mm,
quote unquote. I got over that, thank goodness, because I'm still watching the show and I really, really enjoy it now. But it was a tough thing. I had to make these like little leaps in my own brain of like, oh, how does that connect or whatever. And I like to say this a lot about Discovery. Mostly, it's the visual presentation because on paper, or if you listen to it as if it's an audio drama, it actually works perfectly. It fits beautifully, and it's part of perfectly maybe is an exaggeration, but it fits beautifully into its part of Star Trek history for the time. If you were to just like strip away some of the anachronistic quote first Star Trek viewpoints. But if they had said, hey, this is a show that takes place in the disco timeline from the start, those are things that like me personally I would have
We
not,
all want to live in the disco timeline. Come on.
yeah, man.
oh
The
yeah,
disco timeline's the best. So Star Trek could do like even wilder interpretations of past events by just simply saying, like, hey, this is another universe. And I think shows like What If have given a really good
mm,
example of how that kind of stuff can really work. And also Loki, as a matter of fact, it takes place in an alternate version of that timeline. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do now with the multiverse in Star Trek. I hope they do utilize it as a storytelling tool.
Well, we got a few one off you were quoting the original series episodes, but even in TNG we technically got a few things
yeah, with
where like Worf,
parallels.
the
Oh,
parallels, the
parallels, yeah.
56 versions of Worf or whatever it was coming together. So we always get these one-off little stories. Like Star Trek, I like to say that Star Trek always has ideas, and then later on, like films from other different franchises or just standalone films, kind of run with Star Trek's ideas, or that
Mm,
we originally had in our little franchise. But yeah, they've been doing standalone stories for a while now. It would be interesting to see if they were eventually going to start building like a big multiverse story together, like where there's a common threat to say like the Mirror Universe, the Kelvin timeline, and the Prime timeline, and they would all have to defend or protect themselves against this common threat,
yeah,
which is
and that would be
kind of what was happening in season one. I mean, technically, Mirror
yes,
Stamets was going to destroy the entire multiverse
Hmm.
with his experimentations
yeah,
there.
because they even like said, oh yeah, this could destroy the entire multiverse. I believe in that
Right.
episode
Yeah.
with the mycelial super reactor. Yeah.
Do you guys think they're throwing in little opportunities already? Like, for example, in the latest, are you caught up on the latest Prodigy, Sean?
I saw it.
Oh, okay, good. So in the latest Prodigy, like you actually well, in the last couple of Prodigies, you get like a glimpse of Captain Chakotay, and he's clearly wearing a uniform variant that we haven't seen yet. The ship might be from the future. Like, there's all these things, but with the design cues, like even little things, I don't know if how seriously we can take these cues anymore, because, like I said, like Disco kind of changed that idea of like what's the aesthetic norm of Star Trek at any given point, but the design cues like are very reflective of things we've seen in the Kelvin timeline as far as those designs go. So I'm like kind of fingers like I'm like kind of like, oh, maybe this is a Kelvin timeline crossover, like a mini crossover. You know, maybe the ship is from that timeline, and that version of Chakotay needs to get back to the Kelvin timeline or something like that, and that'll introduce younger audiences to the concept of a multiverse, and also to kind of introduce younger audiences to like the other Star Trek, like the 2009 era Star Trek. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think there's like a little possibility of that?
I do not like that idea. I'll just put that out there. I'm very much that ship style still fits in the Prime timeline.
Oh yeah,
and
no,
I'm very much
agree.
Visual continuity matters less than event continuity. And it also goes to the fact that I want these different timelines to be what they are, with like a butterfly effect of vastly different as time goes on. You're not gonna, I mean, they still do it with like, you in the mirror universe, even though all these drastic things have happened, you still have O'Brien, Sisko, and Odo on DS9. Whereas if you actually followed normal logic, you'd be like, that doesn't make sense because their lives would be completely different.
Yeah.
Then you introduce things like fate and blah blah blah.
Which is why Picard's doing such a great job, because everything's on its head from what you think.
What was I gonna say? But
well, you're saying you don't like that idea of
because
the Kelvin crossover.
Then Chakotay and Janeway then being there, I'm like, I don't really want that. If that happens in the Kelvin timeline,
it's a hollow Chakotay. It's a hollow Janeway.
It's a hollow Janeway. But if it was in the Kelvin timeline, then why would it be a hollow Janeway with Chakotay? And you just get a lot of questions from me, which I need.
I do like
answers.
I do like to try and like the reason in my mind, the reason why the Mirror Universe and the Prime timeline are so similar, even though like the big events are very different, is because I know it may be bizarre to talk about fate or something like that, but it's almost like there are so many different universes out there, but some of them are kind of connected. They're almost attracted to each other, and so the events end up being similar. And that's why, that I feel justifies why they're so connected. Why it's easier to jump from the mirror to the Prime than to some other universe we haven't seen yet.
Or the Kelvin universe might also be right next to her, like one's to the right, one's to the left, so to speak.
And it takes less energy to cross that void between them, which I really like that idea. And you also have kind of evidence towards that idea with what Kovic says in season 3, of the fact that the mirror universe has been drifting so far away. Incursions haven't been the case yet, because you probably need a lot of energy to cross over, which is why something which powers the DMA.
The DMV, right? Oh, I mean, wait, the DMV, the DNA. The DMA.
Yeah, so what about
big
that?
villain?
So what about that guy from this season of Discovery? That dude, he says he's from an alternate.
No, says
his friend is from an alternate.
No, it's confusing, but
he says that his new home is in an alternate timeline, and his friend found it. Or knows about it.
But he needs a massive amount of energy to go there. So maybe it's a timeline, universe, or dimension. Like Star Trek interchanges those words.
Yeah, it does.
It maybe it's something that we've never seen before, a place that we've never actually seen on screen, like a new place.
Yeah, definitely, and one that doesn't have war or the burn.
Right. Apparently, it's like a more peaceful version of this.
It's the Ryza universe.
Well, he hates Ryza, so he's not going there. He was not treated well.
They didn't appreciate his genius of atomizing a paracool or whatever he did.
He did, yeah, it's true. They just wanted to have a good time, chilling out by the pool. Maharaj. Yeah, it's true. But so he's trying to get to yet another parallel universe.
Yeah, and I think that's just an undescript parallel universe where those events didn't happen, where temporal war didn't happen, the burn didn't happen.
It's intriguing to.
It makes sense, yeah.
It would be intriguing to understand a little bit more how the friend knew about the existence of the other universe, and like how they're so sure that it's like a better one. Imagine you slide into this universe and it's actually like horrifying. It's actually like the Edo like succeeded and created a galactic empire, so like they don't tell you what zones are of the galaxy are under like the law or whatever. And so if you step off onto the grass, you're toast.
No. Worst universe. Yeah, definitely. I think
How the hell would
then,
they succeed in taking over everything?
well, if there's a infinite number of multiple
Yeah, I guess.
universes,
Infinite
then there's one
possibilities.
in which they will have taken over.
I don't want to.
I think
I don't want to
that one
get
is so far away; it would take so much energy. to
Yeah,
get
how
there.
dreadful.
I don't want to like change the topic of the show, but like the Edo, they can use their sexual powers to take over the universe. It can happen.
I have not watched that episode in a long time, so I will not comment. But yeah, also going into different, I guess, multiverses, parallel dimensions, whatever you want to call them. We've also got a lot of, I'm going to call them like dimensional realms or something with fluidic space, which is essentially a different universe composed entirely differently. You've got the sphere builders realm, which is comprised of different matter where they can't exist in our realm. You've got all these different places which aren't just alternate universes which are our universe, but
Right.
different events have happened, such
like
as what's seen in
Nagilum.
parallels.
Like Nagilum might be one of those situations too, where you've entered into like a pocket or a bubble universe or something like that.
But ones where the very matter of the universe are completely different. So there is a lot of very interesting things you can do with a multiverse in Star Trek, because we already have this groundwork laid of, so here's fluidic space, where space is a fluid and you swim through it.
Whereas also, like, where did they go and where no one has gone before? Or what was that? Sorry, the episode where Wesley and the Traveler go off. That's what it's called, right? Where no one has gone before, I think.
I
or something
cannot
like that.
remember.
Darn it. Anyways, there's this, like, where did they go there? It was like a dimension or like a realm where thoughts created, created reality, which was interesting as well. So there's like a lot of examples of that. You're absolutely right.
I was trying to go through my notes because I think it's something.
Yeah, and you were making paper sounds over Dom.
Yeah,
you're the one who has to edit it, not me. So.
I apologize, but I was going. Look, I've tied it all together now. People will understand why they were paper sounds. I have a million piles. I have an entire drawer that's just dedicated to like Star Trek stuff. And so I go through it, theory crafting about this or that, and I was trying to find all my notes about Multiverse because I know that at some point I had like basically taken down every single like different multiverse or different dimension, different place that they go to. I was trying to find that, but anyway, that's too
I
long
know
ago.
there's a really good page on Memory Alpha about all the different multiverses and how they link ? Because they sum it up with like there are 3 different types of parallel universes, which I'm just trying to find.
I've always thought that maybe one day we would go to we would change galaxy, right? We would go to like Andromeda or something. And I always thought it would be interesting to try and make that place like as alien as possible, in the sense that all of the laws of physics or everything that we understand, like how the galaxy is made up and how it functions, nothing like that.
Well, that couldn't happen in our universe because the laws of physics are I mean, unless there's like what Q does, where he's able to change physics within a certain like area or
So
whatever.
You think Andromeda would have to be the same as us?
It would have to be the same. Like,
Yeah.
It would any place in this universe would have to obey the laws.
So you'd have to go to another dimension to
get weirder.
That.
To get weird. Like
with
physics,
fluidic space and stuff like that. But I think they should definitely lean into that. Like, the it's Bride of Chaotica with the photonic universe.
Oh yeah,
where everything is made up of, it's not like carbon-based life forms; it's photonic-based life forms.
That was a pretty cool idea. Actually,
you have a lot of things you can go really crazy with and still have it make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, quote unquote, but it makes sense for science fiction, doesn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
We also have to remember that Star Trek is constantly incorporating the the latest and greatest theories about these subjects into its storytelling, because the original series, they thought there was a great barrier that was like, preventing us from leaving our galaxy.
You've been shocked by the Great Barrier.
Yeah, there's this like thing, and
got some strange energy,
and I think that may have been supported somewhat by cosmologists at the time, but like people were starting to see that there's actually nothing like this. But it's interesting how, like, if you look at Star Trek from a certain perspective, you can see the going theories or the going ideas, the wilder ideas of the time as far as cosmology is concerned. And so like TNG like really took it to new areas where, like, introducing us to, like, a lot of cosmic events that are post Hubble, where we got to see these things a lot clearer, like nebula, like there were more accurate depictions of nebulas and binary stars, and just like more accurate, scientific talk in general.
And then going forward, you have then the really accurate black holes, which we've seen in Discovery.
Yeah, like so exactly.
And did it show up anywhere else?
No, but like the consultant, I think that but the consultants working on the show right now, they're like both physicists, cosmology experts, Dr. Noor and Dr. Erin McDonald, who everyone knows, she's awesome. But like the DMV itself, like the way it looks, it's kind of like doing the same thing like a black hole does with the gravity. So it has a similar appearance or whatever. But yeah, everything, like Disco's that's the other cool thing, is like Disco's presenting these like wild new ideas that like are now influenced by quantum physics, which wasn't really at play as much as it is today. Like we're making a lot of strides in our understanding of the the quantum realm, so to speak. So yeah, I love that Star Trek has if you look at different eras or different shows, you can actually see some ideas that are outdated or outmoded that no longer apply, because Star Trek's always trying to like incorporate some kind of like latest and greatest theory. But yeah, at one time the galaxy was like hard to penetrate, and now we know it's not the case.
You don't need to say it like that, but sure.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
He forces himself to put things like that.
I swear that word is like not an offensive.
Oh, it's not. It's just now
the way I said
saying that for you, it made you has caused this great moment.
But yeah, anyways. I've always liked that about Star Trek, and now the multiverse is something that we're looking at in physics like a lot more, and in the idea of it is more understood than it ever has been, and so I think it would make sense for Star Trek to start exploring the multiverse. I love that idea you said earlier about in the book about the multiverse federation. That's an interesting idea. It's very cool. Like, so like at like their first contact protocols
their
would be like
contact is whether is through mycelial technology.
It's amazing.
The normal federations is through warp drive. So as soon as they identify that, this universe has developed the means to travel the multiverse, we will get in contact with them and be like, hey, we're the Federation, you can join us if you want. We're kind of cool.
That would kind of take the Discovery being the most important ship ever to like a whole new level at that point.
Yeah, because then they'd just be like the Phoenix. And even with the 32nd century technology, they would be Still the Phoenix.
Like the Phoenix, yeah, it's totally true. It's a good point. Oh my gosh. That is cool. I hope they do incorporate something like that into the show, to the main show. That would be a really neat place for
you
Discovery
guys
to
are saying
go.
Alex Kurtzman's talking about crossovers and talking about like events happening eventually.
Well, he kind of dropped a hint that at some point a
But
crossover event
yeah,
would
the
occur.
thing is, at the minute, that's probably more
Yeah.
just timeline stuff than
I think
Okay.
multiverse
Disco,
stuff.
Fathery of Tech Trek was saying that if any show deserves it, it's Disco because it's the flagship show. So, and it's already set up, as you said, like with the mycelial network and all these things, like to be able to like do something, you know, mechanically speaking, to initiate like a crossover, you know, event. Disco could do it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Well, how
and they
about
could
that?
eventually tie it to Calypso, because that
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Oh, so many people are frustrated about that.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. But there are
Oh,
like
yeah.
little clues. We are getting little evolutions towards Calypso, interestingly, like
Yeah.
with Zora.
But it'll
So
just be interesting to see how.
yeah,
But yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe the Cthulhu beast, the Cthulhu creature that came in from like a parallel or like
we don't
another
know
dimension. We
if
don't.
that
Oh,
was
the
a.
Symphulu.
That
Yeah.
could have been another galaxy. They could have been the Kelvins
You think
from the
it was a
original
Yeah,
series.
I
it was a
think it was
portal to just-
extra galactic,
Yeah,
and it was just
Ooh.
a portal outside the galactic barrier.
Okay.
Because they did originate from our Milky Way galaxy. So it does stand to reason that they're probably just outside the barrier.
yeah.
Are they the people that gave Vija like its sentience?
I haven't read much outside of the Star Trek, what's presented on screen for Picard, but that would be not a bad idea if it's the V'ger creatures. But I mean, the return of the V'ger people have been hinted at throughout. Like I think in Vendetta, for example, the Star Trek novel by Peter David, it's hinted that they're responsible for the Borg as well, or something like that. And so
yeah, a lot of people just link it to the Borg because a planet of robots, Borg.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of like just the easy way out.
Yeah, it seems a bit limiting though.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you
the
guys?
Borg is so much more, but yeah.
Because V'ger kind of assimilates a little bit, but he disintegrates you and then stores you, or you know, like
it's not quite the same execution.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys think that it's the Kelvin timeline films like Star Trek 09 that really opened everyone's mind up to the possibility of multiverse in mainstream media? Or was that more like an X-Men thing?
I honestly feel like those films did it in such a like kind of subtle, or not subtle, but I would say they executed in such a smooth way that it didn't like, I don't think it like clicked with everyone that it's necessarily a different universe, because there was a lot of debate about a different timeline, like rewriting the timeline. So I don't know that it's like presented in such a way where it's obvious, but certainly
on screen it isn't, but definitely like behind the screens with
Simon Pegg
interviews and especially with I think Alex Kurtzman to begin with, he viewed it as a quantum timeline difference.
Right.
And that it is basically a different that multiverse theory. I do think it did. I can't really. I mean, I haven't watched the X-Men film, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I think I do. But it was definitely the start of this more public understanding and view of multiverse in media.
Star Trek leading the way once again.
I feel like I feel like it did. I know that like the MCU is getting a lot of credit now for doing a lot of things, and they should, because they're doing a lot of interesting things.
Well, they're doing it in a way that is, they're doing it on a scale I think that has hitherto not been done before, and they're like opening up. I didn't understand. I just recently saw the Eternals, so now I'm finally complete, and now I get it. I get what the Eternals and Shang-Chi open up the Marvel universe to other realms, if you will, for lack of a better word, but other dimensions as well. They're starting to take that concept that Loki and like some of the show, it's just neat what they're doing. I mean, they aren't doing anything new, but it's kind of like how Apple doesn't release anything new, they would just release better versions of it. Like, and I feel like
you can argue whether it's better versions, but I think it's more the point that more people are seeing it in Marvel.
Right. That's a good
compared to the niche sci-fi show sci-fi movie that came out in 2009.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say better than Star Trek. Star Trek's the best in my heart. But certainly Kevin Feige is heavily influenced by Star Trek. He's a huge fan, especially I think of TNG, and a lot of people cite All Good Things as the structure of it as an influence on Endgame. So
yeah.
Well, he did that.
Oh, he did.
I think he's the one that he said that he quoted. I forgot. I don't want to quote him on something wrong, but he talked about the TNG finale being an inspiration for like Endgame.
Oh, there you go. That's where I heard about it. Okay.
Because people were asking him about like deaths, who's going to die, what characters are going to. And he says you don't have to kill characters to give their story like finality. Basically.
Even though he does, but anyways,
well, some of them,
and even though they're gonna come back because their contracts have already been renewed and they've already announced
so they did die, and there's no finale. Okay, it's Ant-Man. Now that I think of it, that kind of opened up, like, because Ant-Man went to what is it, the quantum realm or whatever it is?
The quantum realm is which is starting to all come into play and stuff.
Yeah, it's the first one that really did that, I guess, which is a smaller MCU movie.
But for Star Trek, Discovery with the Mycelial Network totally has the opportunity to easily create this like crossover event at some point in the future of the show. If it's not already going to happen, I don't think it's going to happen, but at the end of this season. But we'll see.
Yeah, because they definitely have to lead up to it.
Yeah,
I would love do it, but
I would love to see. I mean, this is like totally. I can't see how it would work well, but I would love to see Burnham and Picard like team up. That would be really cool. But
there was actually an
idea like that.
An idea about that after Nemesis, which would have basically a rogues gallery of villains and Picard having to recruit people from across time, which is an idea, but definitely wouldn't have been done after Nemesis. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it was actually called Star Trek Avengers. It was titled as.
That's amazing.
Obviously, this was before any Avengers stuff happened.
I want to live in that reality when that happens.
It was like the return of Khan, Borg Queen. I actually need to look it up and make sure this wasn't just a fever dream.
It was the Suicide Squad Star Trek
goodness. So Patrick Picard as like Rick Flag here leading the goddamn Star Trek Suicide Squad. How ridiculous.
Okay. So it was Star Trek The Avengers.
Oh, wow.
It was devised by Brandon Braga and likened by him to an Avengers story. It was a superhero team-up approach. The story would have collected Starfleet's greatest minds to defeat a terrible threat. We were going to get Picard, Data, Odo, the holographic Doctor, all of the Star Trek characters on one ship. It was like Star Trek The Avengers.
That's hilarious. Moriarty would probably
You might as well throw Kirk in there as well. It's like,
comes back for like a second time at this point.
Yeah. So that was that. But then I think there was one before that idea, which was a follow-up to Nemesis, which would be a crossover. I'm just quickly reading through it. It would bring all the great Star Trek villains together from Khan to Shinzon, and Picard is the only person who could stop them. And he actually has to go through time and pluck people out, the people he needs to help him. He goes back to the moment before Data blows up and takes him to get Kirk and Spock.
Oh, yeah.
And goes even further back to get Scott Bakula's character Archer.
Oh, yeah, that's so crazy.
The problem with that idea was that how do you pay for that? That costs a lot, because Nemesis was really bad. At the box office, they were like, "Yeah, we're not doing that."
Sorry. Yeah, they're like, sorry. Nice try.
Yeah,
nice
we're not
try.
paying for Prince Viner, Patrick Stewart, William Shatner,
Scott
Leonard
Bakula.
Nimoy, Scott Bakula. Yeah.
It's very bold to propose something like that. It's like, just ignore the flop. We want to do this.
It would have been the Justice League of Star Trek.
The Justice League. It's true.
I'm afraid no. I think it would have been like the Extraordinary League of Gentlemen or whatever that film's called.
Yeah.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, it would have been that of Star Trek. Oh no.
As far as in-universe goes, I like that Discovery's expanding the idea with this recent Tarka thing and stuff, that we are going to potentially see other, because we always do go to the mirror universe. It's true. It's like kind of our favorite.
And I like that Tarka points it out. He's like,
yeah, he actually does.
It's not just a mirror universe, Jack, dude. There are others.
Well,
I also like the perspective shift that Giorgio offered last season, where she said, we call you guys the mirror universe. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
It was cool too.
The excitement, like the fandom excitement, I think was palpable when we saw Yor on screen.
Right.
Yes.
And when it was like, he was, okay, so this guy's Kelvin. It's like, oh my goodness. There was like a general freak out.
They didn't say it, but we know.
Well, they said he was from a timeline incursion made by a Romulan mining ship.
Yeah, that seems pretty specific. I mean, I understand that maybe multiple parallel universes were made that way, but come on.
No. I know. It is the Kelvin timeline, but I'm glad they just said it like that, where they were like, they gave us the exact significant facts needed for us to know where it came from,
and also
but without like naming it Kelvin timeline.
Well, it wouldn't make sense for them to name that. They how do you know that?
Name it.
I have the DVD.
They would have called it like Timeline 015C.
Yeah, I like exactly. I would have liked a designation like that. Exactly.
I actually think that would be a good idea. Going forward, it would be like, I understand why they call one the Prime, maybe because it's their own. But it would be interesting to have like a numerical designation maybe for these timelines if we start getting more of them.
It'd be cool if the Section 30, like Giorgio's fate maybe is that she creates a temporal dimensional, a temporal dimensional version of Section 31 that they don't just they don't just hop around, because maybe she needs to go back to the mirror universe every now and then or whatever,
to not be sick. But she can't stray too far away from like her own timeline or universe.
She can't stray through both her own timeline and the universe. She can do one or the other.
Yeah,
but not both at the same time.
Would Anorax be one of the big villains they brought back in the Avengers
surely.
story? He's the one that's orchestrating this whole thing, right? He's like, I need to defeat the Federation now. Screw them. I'm gonna go get all of their biggest villains.
I need to get my wife back. I've still got a locket of her hair.
Yeah, he's gone full Wilson Fisk trying to get his wife back.
If only Anorax's wife's name was Vanessa, that'd be great. Vanessa. No.
You do know that if they eventually start really going down like timelines and stuff like that, like there will be like an outcry to get Trip back. Someone will be like, okay, well,
I'm on that team. I'm on definitely. Trip outcry team. Like I'm totally there.
That kind of quote unquote happened in the novels.
Yeah, and he winks, before it happens.
But that's more like, he fates his death, but then the official description of his death in like the hollow things were changed, because then he joined Section 31.
Right.
And then eventually he retired to Vulcan with T'Pol. There's a lot of other stories there, but that sums up.
Yeah, I am a total stand for that being the real deal.
I could definitely see that being the case, but also a way to enforce the temporal ban that happened after the Temporal Wars, because it's very much at the minute, they talk about, you can't time travel, but what's stopping people from time traveling? Is a good question, and then you can also
need the time police of some kind, like, or I don't know. Could you actually alter? I guess no, you couldn't alter the way physics work, and like you couldn't create some sort of barrier through time.
That's what I actually thought they were going with. They made like a temporal firewall, after the Temporal War, and that's what Discovery hit when it was going through the wormhole, and that's why they split. I thought that would be cool, but they were just like, oh no, they just hit some Hawking radiation. Okay. But yeah, and then you also have to question whether the time police that already exist in the 29th century still do their job, even though they're banned in the 32nd century, because by the 32nd century they would have already done their job, and then you just get into a lot of headaches about time travel.
That's why I find the multiverse, I find it
more refreshing than time travel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Time travel gets complicated, and you can often do it very wrong. Whereas I feel like the multiverse, it's kind of like there's a cheat code, right? It's like you can't go wrong, really. It's just like, oh, it happens in a different universe, ta-da! And so you can do whatever you really want to do. And I know
it's also very safe because, like, if something doesn't work as you wanted it, then you can just be like, oh, well, it was another timeline. Oh, well.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I love that. You didn't like that?
All the people who
timeline. How do you
disliked the Kelvin films were like, oh, well, at least it's not in the prime timeline. At least it's in a different timeline.
Oh, well, that's been my thing for years.
Yeah. But then you do get people being like, oh, well, I don't like Discovery, so it's in the Kelvin timeline.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Which is one, ridiculous, but two, if you had any thought, you should at least just say it's in a different timeline rather than the Kelvin timeline.
The Kelvin timeline,
because
right, yeah.
It completely doesn't work in the Kelvin timeline. And people are idiots for suggesting that, but...
it's very childish. It's a thing that comes back often in like comments or everyone's like people that disagree with Discovery. I understand that. Look, if you disagree with Discovery, you disagree with it. Like people disagree with other shows all the time. To say that it is not what it is kind of just childish, and it's not solving anything. It's not helping either.
I was one of those people, by the way, in the beginning that was like trying to figure out how it fits into other timelines.
No, you were just convinced through the entire run of season 1. You were convinced they were going to come out and reveal that it wasn't another timeline. That was just you were just naive.
But you weren't thinking that it was in Kelvin timeline.
No, I think I entertained it we entertained it though on the show, but we all came to the conclusion that that's not the case.
It just wouldn't work because Discovery takes place in 2257 and Kelvin timeline takes place in 2256.
Right.
And then eventually they do a little Pike montage where they previously on Star Trek.
Well, yeah, that to me is like
it symbolizes
it's like the point where you're like, there's no argument past this. Like, this is the on-screen presentation that we're in the quote unquote.
Because someone could say, "Oh, it's not the real Spock. It's not." Yes, like okay, well, they did a previously on, and they've established that this character
is an alternate universe where that stuff did happen, but then it changed.
Oh yeah, because
see, my theory still works. To hate on this show. Yeah.
It's funny. You were saying that visual continuity doesn't matter, and I feel the same way. Like ultimately, visual continuity needs to take a second seat to the main story. But Star Trek, the problem with Star Trek, I think, is that up until now, it did a pretty damn good job of creating a through line in its visual continuity. So it's not that it ever
especially
mattered,
with like Trials and Tribulations and the Mirror Universe. Enterprise film episodes being like, oh, this
is what it looked
60s style of ships still existed how they looked. But I mean, not to talk about the other sci-fi show that's franchise that starts with S, but how I view canon very much is I think it was hit home by Pablo Hidalgo, who works on Star Wars.
I've never heard of that.
I mean, I'll quickly go through this then. But in regards to who shot first, Greedo or Han, it really doesn't matter because the events that happened were Han and Greedo walked into a bar, one of them walked out. And it's more those broad strokes which matter than the finer details of the painting.
Absolutely.
I do understand where people are coming from.
Thank you.
I am not at all invested in who shot first. I do not give a shit. But I do understand where people are coming from in the sense that it's like there's the broad strokes, who comes out of the bar alive, but then there's the finer details of like who's got the quicker draw, And I understand why people would say, "Look, Han, he's got the quicker draw." You know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
Those are the finer details. So I understand where they're coming from.
I just love the introduction of McClunky into that, and to me, that's like the best.
That was only recently, wasn't it?
I know it was, but now I'm like all about McClunky. So
yeah, I mean, Twitter was abuzz with McClunky when that happened.
Yeah, because when they put the movie on Disney Plus, it was a new version that we'd never seen, right?
Yes.
Like that scene had a
McClunky. I love it. It was like, we're gonna distract you from who shot first. With McClunky, and I was
that's
like,
the solution. I think they had a board meeting about that. How can we?
They had a committee committee scene. They're like, we got to sort this out, guys. How are we going to do it?
Look, we can't change it back because now it's become a thing. Let's just put something distracting, you know?
McClunky.
And then someone's like, I know some Hutties. We can have him say a swear word. What about shooter? No, McClunky. Yes.
No, it's like one of the super geeky Star Wars interns that was just like he dropped like a coffee cup or something. McClunky. That's it. We got it.
They had on a whiteboard a bunch of options, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna vote on this now." Just raise your hand if you want this.
And it's fixed. See, no one complains anymore.
No one complains anymore. It's true.
To be honest, I have seen less complaints now that McClunky has been introduced, so you may have a point there. But maybe it's just those complaints were done to death, but you know.
Yeah, I used to complain about like the way YouTube looks now, and I've stopped complaining. I still think it looks like trash. But there comes a moment where you're just like, it's like, okay, let's just move on, because you can't complain about the same thing for years and years and years.
Oh my.
Klingons. But I'm thinking Rick and Morty probably had a lot to do with like the standardization of the multiverse.
Oh, is that right? I've still yet to see that show.
Yeah, very much. I mean, isn't it like the 4th or 6th episode or something with, we're just trying to go to another
Do you guys not think
universe?
that Sliders gets credit or Quantum Leap?
Yes,
for that kind of thing?
Watched either.
I have not watched either, but I was going to mention Sliders because you mentioned it so often.
Yeah, I love that. When I was watching that,
I was thinking, wait a minute, how has he not talked about Sliders yet?
Well, I did, because we were sticking to Star Trek, whatever.
Yeah, but we've already talked about Star Wars and Rick and Morty.
We went all McClunky on it. So.
But yeah, we went all McClunky. But I was just thinking, like, Sliders was like a really early example of the multiverse. Like, that's exactly what it was different dimensions that they would travel through, and so I feel like that nailed it. It's a good show. I hope they remake it for modern audiences. I think it's one of those concepts that might really work today. It was made in the 90s.
Okay.
I want to say 90s, early 2000s, maybe. But definitely the 90s. It started in the 90s. Let me see. I could probably look it up. But it stars
Futurama, I feel like
stars Jerry O'Connell as the lead character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So
interesting.
He was just like a kid when that. Here, let's see. Sliders air date. Let me see here. March 22nd, 1995. So that's when it first aired.
Rebecca Romaine and Jerry O'Connell were doing.
And it has another Voyager alumni. It has Jonathan Rhys Davies, who plays Da Vinci, as like the professorial. So Sliders is kind of like
I love how you call him a Voyager alumni. he's not at all Gimli, but
that's right. He's also Gimli. Interestingly, like so Jerry O'Connell was in a show called My Secret Identity, which was on in the 80s, and I used to watch that as a kid. It's a Canadian show, actually. And in that show, he teamed up with a professorial type who was helping him and guiding him through using his extraordinary superpowers. He had like speed force. He had like strength. He could fly, like this kid, like a preteen or whatever. So that show was about that. And then the next show he did was this show Sliders, where he's also teaming up with a professorial type, but this time to hop around from dimension to dimension. So it's interesting that the type of shows he would do is very Watson and Holmesian type of stuff.
I might have to go and watch Sliders eventually one day, or at least watch a couple episodes just to know what you're talking about.
It's fun, just to see it. But I really think it's
because we've been doing chats for how long now? Like almost 6 years, maybe 4 to 5 years, and
5. Yeah, we've 5 at least. Yeah, But yeah,
maybe I'll just know what Sliders is by the end of like our lives discussing this thing.
It's ripe for a remake, though. I think it could totally work, especially now that everyone's into the multiverse and stuff like that.
I have too many things to watch as it stands, though, to go back.
Yeah.
There's like a million Star Trek shows coming out.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, I got to admit it, I'm kind of invested in these live action Star Wars shows too. So
find a YouTube video. I'm sure I'll find you a YouTube video that just kind of like gives you the gist of Sliders with some visuals. I'm sure there's
Sliders recapped.
Recapped, yeah. I'm sure someone's done that.
Sliders in 5 minutes.
Sliders in 5 minutes. Sliders in 5 minutes, isn't that just like a recipe for burgers or something?
Yeah.
Right. And then Quantum Leap did like a lot of, I guess it was time travel, really, not really anything else, but just calling it Quantum Leap and like introducing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's because quantum, all of a sudden makes it sound really cool.
But that's ahead of its time too. 89. I think the quantum idea, the idea of the quantum, spaces and quantum particles and stuff like that, that was like pretty cutting edge back then, I think. Still.
I'm just looking at Sliders, and the fact that Wikipedia's picture of Jerry O'Connell is him at the Lower Decks panel at Comic-Con is amazing. Just like, oh, yeah. I remember that picture being taken.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we might wrap it up, unless you guys have like any final thoughts to address.
I'll just say that this was a fun journey down the concept of the multiverse and Star Trek and how it handles it, and I really hope we get together if an event occurs, when the event occurs, the crossover event. I hope we get together and like reflect on it together with what we were talking about in this episode.
Yeah, we'd be like, we predicted it this many years ago.
We knew.
It's true. Well, you have a really good track record, Dom. So, like,
well, you say that, but
but I don't. I guess I don't see
lots
all
of
your
theories
fails.
onto and just see what sticks. Yeah. Oh no, Omega molecule theory of the burn. Oh no. Or anti-Lazarus and Lazarus joining together again caused the burn. Oh. I actually would have loved if that happened.
Just
make
every single theory
work.
Every single theory he can think of.
You know what's
Also,
funny? Brian Fuller could play Lazarus because he kind of has that wild hair. He totally could.
But also, with the multiverse, those things did happen, just in an alternate universe. Yeah. So my theories did come true.
It's true.
So I don't think we can claim that Star Trek was the first to do the multiverse. Nor was it the first to really bring it to mainstream media. It seems like it's just been like a progressive thing.
Yeah.
Slowly, like every kind of major franchise has moved towards the multiverse. Well, of course, it has to be science fiction. I don't think that like Harry Potter is going to go multiverse.
I think we can credit Star Trek with planting. I think we can credit Star Trek with planting some of the seeds that lead to these things coming to fruition.
Each franchise further developed on it.
Yeah. So I think we
made it so that more eyes were on it.
Right.
As it kept going.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, the both of you. It was great fun.
Inviting us.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah, I'll have to have you both back to talk about, I don't know, some sort of other concept. And
we'll have a concept. That's fine.
We'll have a concept. And thank you so much for listening. As usual, live long and prosper.